Um, yeah, thanks, guys. So thank you, everyone, and welcome to our open forum webinar with Kandji. Just to give you a little quick background, obviously Trams, we've been around for kind of over 30 years. We're an Apple authorized reseller, we've predominantly worked within the media and entertainment business, where we built up a large customer base, working, supplying devices and creating devices as well. So we're building a lot of bespoke Macs back in the day. Obviously, that's now then grown into as Apple has grown, we have as well, and we've now look after a number of devices with device solutions. I think with our Trams Cloud, we're about 26,500 devices we currently look after. And as Apple has grown, obviously, so has the solutions availability. One of those being Kandji, which is grown substantially in the US quite recently, and obviously now they're launching in Europe, and we were one of the first, I think, one of the first resellers to sign up with you guys, which we're proud to do. And obviously, this is why we're here today, just to find out a little bit more about Kandji and automated solutions and the security that you've got for people's Apple estate. So, well done. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, Adrian. We're really pleased to partner with Trams. It's great for us to work with partners who really understand the Apple ecosystem and what companies need when they're trying to deploy Apple devices. So really pleased to be here with Martin and to talk about Apple device management and how companies can utilize our services together. So Martin, do you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll do the same?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you guys. Lovely to be here. So I'm Martijn. I am the CISO for Trams, but my background is pure technical, mainly in managing Apple devices. So I'm still quite heavily involved in any MDM Apple-related projects, and I do quite a bit of consulting on Apple and MDM as well.
Great. Yeah, my own background is being a Mac admin. So I started my career 30 years ago at a university where we had a Mac lab and a Next lab. And over that time, I've stayed close and in and around Apple. Before I came to Kandji, I was doing field engineering work for Apple, deploying Apple devices at scale for some of the largest companies in the US. And since coming to Kandji, it's been a real pleasure to focus on building tools that help Mac admins to be more effective and to have more impact with their organization. So partnering with Trams has been really important for us in the UK and larger in Europe. We've been in London for about 2 years now, and we've really seen phenomenal response from customers in and around the UK, but also across Europe and the larger EMEA area. So as we begin today, I'd like to just do a quick overview of Kandji to introduce it to people who may not be familiar. And then Martin and I are going to talk through some of the advantages that come from automating these solutions. So let me pull up my screen here and share it with you. So Kandji was developed from the start to be next generation Apple device management. This is something that was really important to me. Was in my work with Apple and with others, we saw some of the issues with other device management solutions, and we saw problems or issues where we had to implement the same fix over and over again. And it got to a point where we just asked the question, why doesn't the tool just do this for me? Why isn't this built in? And so that's what we set out to do with Kandji. So we've got thousands of customers. The thing that we're really proud about is our customer satisfaction rating. So when customers interact with Kandji, we get feedback from them, we ask for feedback, and they've told us 95%, sometimes even higher, they're highly satisfied with, they're satisfied with Kandji, right? Or highly satisfied. We built this for modern teams. We've built all of our, not all of our technology, we've built a lot of our technology from scratch. The agent that runs on the device is lightweight, performant. We're using all the latest technologies from Apple, the latest APIs, and that includes our security agent as well. So this is a really important feature for a lot of our customers because they're deploying multiple agents from lots of different solutions to meet their needs. And Kandji can cover a lot of those needs with a single agent. So it addresses that agent fatigue that's happening across a lot of companies. We built in a lot of automation. This is at the core of what we do. We want to empower admins to solve a problem quickly, to solve it once, and then allow the tool to make sure that it stays that way. We want people to get time back so they can work on more important and significant contributions. One of the ways that we do that is with auto apps. We have a catalog of 150 plus, coming on 200 different apps that are a one-click install for your team. So all the common ones, Chrome, Firefox, Slack, Teams, etc. A single click, you can deploy it to your entire fleet, configured correctly. Not only is the app installed, but the privacy preferences policy control profile is deployed, notifications profile. If a system or kernel extension is required, that's deployed automatically. So it saves an enormous amount of time. We also have one-click compliance templates. So Kandji is built around the concept of a blueprint where you configure all the settings that you want for your fleet of devices. And within that blueprint, you can choose from a number of built-in security controls that will help you achieve compliance with a number of common frameworks. So CIS, the Center for Internet Security, and so on. All these tools are built to monitor the state of the device and continuously watch and remediate if that state changes. So if a configuration drifts out of the desired state, Kandji will sense that, correct it, and take the appropriate action. Now, the good news is with the MDM controls that Apple has built in, a lot of those settings cannot be changed. They're enforced at a level where even an admin on the local device isn't able to modify that configuration or change the setting. But there are other settings that are important, especially in achieving compliance with some of these security frameworks that are not covered by the MDM protocol. And that's where Kandji's continuous remediation comes in handy because we can manage those settings as well. A couple examples, liftoff is your first run experience for your end users, for your teammates. When they open up the lid on their laptop and they get configured for the first time, liftoff makes sure that all the information that they need about what's being installed, when the device will be ready for them to use, is presented in a really nice, clean, beautiful, friendly way. And when it's done, they're presented with a screen that directs them to additional resources. So if you want to send them to an HR page or a sign-up page for something else, it's all right there. The nice and beautiful thing about this is liftoff just follows the blueprint that you've already configured. So there's no additional settings that are required to communicate this information to your teammates. They just see what the blueprint is doing. Passport is a solution for the syncing your password between your identity provider and the local desktop Mac. So a common issue is users forgetting which password they use where, and so being able to use the same password for the identity provider, Azure AD, Okta, etc., and on the local desktop is a great advantage and reduces some of the complexity for the end user. So thank you for all that. I'll stop and come back to my conversation with Martin. So Martin, I'm watching the chat. Is there an issue with audio that I need to address before we move on.
I can hear you all right. I don't know if everyone can hear you.
Okay. All right. Well, if you can hear me, then we'll proceed.
We can hear you. It's just a bit crackly.
Yeah,
Crackly.
that's all. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's slightly. Yeah, it's fine. We can hear you. We can hear you well enough, so that's fine.
Sounds good. I will. Let's just take a quick moment. Switch back, and has that made any difference at all?
Yeah, that
Yes.
seems to be a lot clearer.
Well, very good. Okay, well, let's proceed. So, Martin, I know you have a lot of experience working with companies and helping them to take advantage of automation to improve the efficiency of the IT team. And so I wanted to just go over some of these features and ask about your experience with that. So, for example, I began with auto apps and patching applications on the device. So from your experience, what has that been like for IT teams, and what are some of the advantages of automating application patching?
Yeah, so the auto apps in Kandji, what you already mentioned in the slide deck before, I think the biggest positive point for that is that the moment you deploy an application through Kandji, everything that you need for that application will be deployed automatically for it. In a lot of MDM solutions, we see when we deploy an application, we need to manually create the PPC profiles, we need to manually create the notification profiles. And in Kandji, the moment you add an application to your blueprint, it will do everything for you.
Yeah. Let me share my screen again and show what this looks like in the Kandji interface. So, one second here. Okay, so in Kandji, you can see, it looks nice and fresh and modern, kind of the latest in web design. What I have selected right here is one of these blueprints that I've been talking about. This one here is our Mac demo blueprint. And there's a number of different items within this blueprint. Up at the top here, there's some of the initial enrollment settings, Apple device enrollment, liftoff, and passport that I mentioned before. But as we come down, we have App Store apps from Apple, and then we have auto apps. So you can see there's a selection here of tools. If I wanted to change this, I can click Edit Library Items here, and you can see I can just toggle on these auto apps to add them to this blueprint. So there's some additional options here that weren't previously selected. If I wanted to deploy Cisco WebEx meetings, I could just click this toggle, right? It will be automatically installed to all of those devices. If I look at an individual, I'm going to cancel this change just for the sake of the demo. But if I go in and look at one of these tools, like let's say 1Password here, it's a handy tool. And in the settings for 1Password, I've got the blueprint selected where it's going to be deployed, but then these options for how I should manage updates. So I've set this to continuously enforce those updates. I could have it available in self-service. And the enforcement here is it will automatically enforce new updates within 2 days of a new update being available. And I can set a particular time for that enforcement deadline. So all of that means I can configure this once and then never touch it again, which is exactly what I want if I'm an admin, is to make sure it's configured correctly one time and then hopefully not think about it again, right? Okay. So another follow-up question here is with OS updates. So Apple, as we know, famously is on an annual upgrade cycle. We've just been introduced to macOS Sonoma, and we've already seen a couple updates to macOS Sonoma. And not only is this, the annual upgrade cycle, but frequent updates throughout the year. I think generally we've been getting somewhere between 6 and 10 OS updates for each major version within a calendar year. So Martin, would you mind just for a minute talking about your experience with rolling out macOS upgrades and updates?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we see happening a lot is that when Apple is releasing a new major OS version or a patch release, that in a lot of cases it is still depending on the user to actually install the update and make sure that devices are compliant. On other MDM platforms, there are bits and pieces to integrate with the devices to make sure that the patches are installed automatically. But none of these solutions are just a click, set, and forget. What I think how Kandji has implemented the software updates, it is literally as easy as adding it to your blueprint, set your preferred settings, and Kandji will do the heavy lifting for you. Kandji will make sure that, the moment Apple releases a major version or a minor patch release, that depending on your settings, your devices will actually be enforced to install that update, making sure that all your devices are always in a compliant state.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I remember all the hours that I spent using some other tools to, prepare an OS installer package, upload it, get the version settings correct, create a some kind of selection mechanism, right? I'm avoiding naming anybody by name, right? But a selection mechanism to identify the machines that need that update, setting up a policy to install it on the right machines and not on the wrong ones. It just was a lot of time and effort every time an update came out. And so in Kandji, we've tried to, again, provide an automation solution for that. So again, I'm going to share my screen and just explain this really quickly. So I'm back in the blueprint with the list of items that are going to be deployed to these devices. And in the list, I have an operating system library item, our managed OS library item that will manage installing macOS Ventura in this example. So I've got it assigned to a couple blueprints. I've got the upgrade set to continuously enforce. And if new updates come out, those will be automatically deployed again. Now, the enforcement deadline here is set to 2 weeks after that update is released. So the end user experience will be, as the deadline approaches, about 5 days before the deadline, the user will start to see notifications that an update is pending. And the reason for doing this is because an OS update will always require rebooting the computer. So it's going to interrupt their work. And so giving the user a little bit of notification about that they can choose when to install that update and reboot the computer helps them to manage their work, right? Doesn't necessarily need to interrupt their day. They could do it at the end of the day or in the morning from that notification that they're seeing. And then if the deadline is reached and they still haven't taken action, well, then you as an admin know that it will be enforced, right? At that point, we'll step in and have a countdown timer letting them know that the system is about to reboot. They do have an option to defer that update for an hour. They can do that a few times within a 24-hour window, just to give them a little flexibility if they're in the middle of a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call like this one. They can defer just a little bit, but as an admin that, hey, my whole fleet is going to be updated on a particular date so that you can maintain compliance with whatever policies you have in place for managing those updates and the schedule for them. The good news is that we have implemented the the declarative device management protocol from Apple in our updater as well. So very soon you'll be able to see, as in a couple weeks, you'll see us using the new declarative mechanism from Apple for updates to macOS Sonoma. And the difference here is that you'll see the native interface from Apple for doing those updates. So it'll look familiar to users, right? It'll help instill trust and confidence in them that they're doing the right thing because they're seeing a familiar Apple dialogue for all of this. But it also means that these updates are going to be more efficient and effective. I could probably go on for hours about DDM itself, but here's one last thing. The way that Kandji has implemented this, we're using the exact same configuration and library item that you see here with the DDM mechanism. So you don't have to learn anything different. You don't have to change the way that you've configured your OS updates. It will continue to be the same mechanism through Kandji as Apple changes the way that it works under the hood. This was a huge goal of ours from the beginning, was we want to, not hide these things. We want to give you all the visibility that you need so you know what's going on, but we want to enable a tool that will do the right thing, even if Apple changes some of those procedures or some of the mechanisms. So if you've configured your Kandji instance to update to the latest version of macOS Sonoma, for devices that are on earlier versions, we'll use the old method, right? The imperative MDM commands. And if your devices are on a newer version, macOS Sonoma, we will do the new declarative device management method of updating. And you don't have to worry about selecting older devices and doing it one way and other devices and doing it another way. Kandji will do that work for you automatically. So you can configure your updates once, and Kandji will continue to do the right thing. There's a bunch of other places where we do that. We've managed other transitions like File Vault. This is a few years ago, right? Apple changed the way File Vault encryption is enforced, and the Kandji library item that manages disk encryption didn't change at all, right? We just do the right thing for each version of macOS. All right. So back to this theme here of managing updates. Martin, one of the other features I mentioned was liftoff and providing information to the end user about what's happening as their device is being set up, and particularly to inform them when the device is ready for them to use. What's been your experience in the past with trying to deploy some of those solutions with other tools?
With most of other MDM tools, you need to either create your own scripts that will make sure that all your software, all your settings are being deployed automatically once a device is enrolled in that MDM solution. It can take quite a while, because especially if you want it to look nice, you want to have all the names, you want to make sure that the user can actually see what is installed, how many items are going to be installed, you want all the icons. It can be quite a task to get it all configured and deployed in other MDM solutions. Again, with Kandji, sorry, you enable liftoff in your blueprint, and based on the auto apps, the settings, the configuration, liftoff will generate that list for you. And the moment you enroll a device, liftoff will kick in automatically. It will show the user what is actually happening. So it's not that the user is looking at an empty desktop and is just wondering, am I supposed to do something now? Do I need to wait? It is really setting the expectations for a user. The user can see the progress, and at the moment everything is installed, it is clear in liftoff, and it is clear to the user that the user can actually start using the system.
I've had the same experience right before Kandji. One of the details with a lot of those other solutions is, they're from a third party or an open source community project, and the way that many of them work is they watch the installer log from the tool, and they're just tailing the log looking for certain strings to say that, okay, this happened. I'm watching for Microsoft Excel installed, that particular string to show up in the log. And then I can tell the user that, okay, there's a check next to Microsoft Excel. What that means is if anything in the tool changes, like the output from the log, or if you change what's being deployed and you need to look for a new string or a different string, you've actually got to configure multiple items, right? You have to configure the tool with the app to be deployed, and now you need to go to the tool that you're using to communicate to the user and change what it's looking for. And that kind of duplicate work I always found a little frustrating. So one of the things that I'll share my screen again so we can see what it looks like in Liftoff here. One of the things I really appreciate about Kandji's implementation is that it doesn't require that additional configuration. So here's our blueprint again. We have a Liftoff library item. If I click into this to see how it's set up, you'll notice the settings here. It's set to run on all enrollments. So it doesn't matter how the device comes in, this will run. It will run in a window. I have a choice to deploy it in full screen and take over as well. It just really depends on the experience that you want for the end user. There is a password to get out of the full screen mode if you need to. This is what the install screen looks like. So it will give the user the list of items that are going to be deployed and the status, if they've been completed or if they're still currently being worked on. This list of items is dynamic from the blueprint itself. So anything I add to the blueprint will show up in this Liftoff screen. If I make a change to my blueprint, that'll be automatically reflected in this first run experience. So then at the help screen, there's a little help button on there. I can direct them to resources or the help desk. I put the phone number in there, email, etc. And then lastly, this complete screen. So when everything is done, it's very clear to the user that the setup's complete, the device is ready to use, the computer is configured with everything they need to do their job. And then we can direct them to some additional links if you like. So again, it could be a human resources page. It could be some internal resources that they need. Could be the help desk, support, whatever you want to present to them. You can do here with, I think 3 or 4 different tiles are available. So again, like I've just configured this once, added it to my blueprint. If I make other changes to the blueprint, the list of items that will be installed, I don't need to go back and modify the Liftoff experience. It will just automatically reflect what the blueprint is doing. So I get a great experience, my end users get a great experience. And one of the things that's been really important to me is obviously, like, IT does lots of jobs, and one of those jobs is to make end users productive, right? To help them use the tools that they need to do their job. And something like Liftoff creates a really nice experience for those end users that makes the admin look good to the rest of their team. Like, people appreciate, like, that was a great experience. I got to open my computer and see what was happening. It was very clear. I got what I needed. And, so much better than the experience of something running in the background and you don't know what's happening. You don't know if it's finished or not, or having to call someone and ask them to do it for you, or why isn't this application included, or whatever. Right? This is a great experience. And so it makes that IT admin look like the hero for their organization. And that was one of the things that was really important to me. Like, I've been in this field for a long time. I want our customers to look good. I want the IT people that use our tools to look good in front of their colleagues and teammates. So, so Martin, we just hit on a few features, but any last thoughts from you around automation and what this can do for an IT team?
Yeah, well, what I think for me is one of the best features of Kandji. It starts all the way at the beginning when you create a blueprint. Looking from a compliance point of view, if we look to build devices that need to be compliant to SIS level 2 for any chance, I think the PDF documentation about SIS level 2 is about 460 pages. If you need to manually configure all the SIS level 2 settings and benchmarks on your system to make sure your system is compliant, in some MDM solutions, you need to configure each setting manually, and it will just take forever to complete. For me, when you create a new blueprint in Kandji and you can just set it to, okay, I need to be compliant to SIS level 2, it is literally one click. And all the settings that you need for SIS level 2 are there. But it's also not as strict that if you have a compelling reason within your organization that you need to make a change to any of the benchmarks, that you can't change it. It is literally just one click away to make the change, and then you have basically a customized benchmark for your environment. And it really is as easy as that. It doesn't take hours and hours of configuration, creating policies, profiles to push. It is all there, just one click of a button.
Yeah, I love that. All these things should help, empower admins to be able to do more, right? The point
Absolutely.
of having these one-click templates is you still have full control. If you want to change anything in that template, remove something, add something else, you absolutely can do it. But we want to help people get started faster and to be able to do more for their company, to have more impact. I use this in different conversations, but you think about what the mission of the organization is. Like, I don't think anyone has up on their wall, like, I'm here to deploy Chrome updates as quickly as possible. Like, it's a part of the job, but I don't think that's the mission that drives, the individuals that are working, and I don't think it's the mission that the organization has. But being able to automate those Chrome updates and get those out of the way so that you can focus on what the real core mission of the organization is and identify how IT can contribute to the success of the company in that mission, that's what's really important. And so at Kandji, part of what we strive to do is to free people up to work on those more impactful pieces of their job, right? So wonderful. It's been great talking with you. We have a few questions in the chat, I think. So if I could come in here, I'm going to pick one. One of the questions was, what data does Kandji store and where? Are you GDPR compliant? So to answer that, we have two different data centers. We have one in the United States. There is a global CDN associated with that for some of the large packages that get deployed. We also have a data center in Frankfurt, Germany, and that is where a number of our EMEA customers choose to host their Kandji instance for data residency requirements. So all of the data for your instance would be within the EU, inside that Frankfurt, Germany data center. GDPR, we don't store personally identifiable information outside of what is shared with us from the directory. So if you integrate your identity provider directory with us, then we do have the list of names and email addresses associated with those users. The information on the device, there are at times for our EDR product, right? We are inspecting files to look for malicious software, malware, viruses, that kind of thing. We can get more information about the specific details from your rep at Kandji if you want to get into more details like that. But we do have an option for EU data residency. There's a question about eSIMs. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, I don't think that we support eSIMs and some of the cellular options. But
No.
there's a couple of people in chat that can help out.
Yeah, Ryan did respond to that during the presentation. Well done, confirmed. We do not yet, although I understand the product team are considering. Yeah.
Okay. Will the end user need the admin password to update the application? So no, that's the whole beauty here, is it's completely automated, and those updates can happen. If the deadline is reached and the application's not running, the Kandji will just update the app silently in the background. If it's open, then we do ask the user to interact with it so that we don't force quit the application, and the danger is the user would lose some work that they were in the middle of doing if we quit the application while it was open. So we do ask for user interaction if the app is open. And similarly with OS updates, like if this is one of the interesting details about Mac OS upgrades, is without an MDM solution, you have to be an admin to install a lot of the updates. And you have to be a volume owner or have a volume owner token in order to run the updates. But MDM can deploy those updates. It does require having a bootstrap token for Apple Silicon devices, but that is created automatically when the device is enrolled into Kandji. So MDM enables all these updates to happen automatically without user interaction. So we include enough user interaction just to inform them of what's coming and what's going to happen, so they're not surprised by their computer, randomly rebooting in the middle of the day or something terrible like that. But Kandji can make sure that those updates happen. So it's good. It gives you the flexibility. Like, I don't want to get into the whole argument about standard users versus admin users here on this show, but you have the choice, right? You can deploy however you want. Let's see. Martin, did you see any other questions that you wanted to address?
If I may, Weldon, this is just Adrian, just quickly coming in. I know that about, I think it's about 70% of our registrations used Intune. So, I mean, what is the difference between Intune and Kandji? What are the benefits of going with Kandji?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's I'll tell a short story here, but some of my experience is working with network management systems in the 90s. And so I was working with large telecom carriers, the wireless cell phone carriers in the United States, and worked with several of them in deploying network management tools. And so it's a diverse environment, lots of switches and equipment from lots of different vendors. And the dream was to have one tool that could manage all of these different devices. And what I found from that experience was that it was really hard to deploy a tool that would work across all of those. And in a lot of cases, we had to step down to a lowest common denominator approach, where we didn't take advantage of some of the features of certain switches from certain vendors because they weren't supported across all of them. We spent a lot of time and money on the idea of one tool to rule them all. And what we found was it was more efficient to have teams that understood each platform and to deploy the policies and configuration for each of those platforms. There was a huge benefit to correlating the status and alarms from each of those. And so that's the approach that we're employing at Kandji. Is there's unique features of Windows that it's really important to have good tooling from Microsoft to manage those features in Windows. There's unique features in Mac OS, and it's really important to have a tool like Kandji that can properly deploy and configure those unique features for Mac OS. For companies that have both, I think it's generally true that companies are offering a choice program. You know, we support both Windows and Mac, and the employees can choose which platform to use. For the employees that choose a Mac, they chose it because they think they're going to be more productive on that platform, and they are familiar with it and they know how to use it. Having tools that support that Mac native experience empowers the end users to be more productive. It also empowers your admins to be more productive because the tool covers all of the needs that you have. So when you go to deploy a package, for example, there's particular things that you have to do on Intune to prepare a package to be deployed, and it adds friction to the whole process of getting an application installed. With Kandji, it is all native. So it is very straightforward to deploy a package. Many of those packages are included in our auto apps catalog. OS updates are a breeze. There's enormous savings that are going to be realized by the company by using Kandji instead of fighting friction that you'll experience in things like Intune for macOS. I'll give Microsoft a lot of credit. Like, Intune has gotten much better within the last year, even, but it still lags far behind what our customers are capable of doing with Kandji. Martin, I see you nodding your head. Is there anything you want to add there?
No, I absolutely agree with you. Yes, you can manage your devices in Intune as well. And yes, in order to get Kandji, you need to buy the license for Kandji. But if you compare that with the time you actually save in managing your Mac environment, I don't necessarily think that that Intune comes as free with your license. Yes, you don't pay a license fee for it, but if it takes 5, 6, 7 times the amount of time to get stuff configured and keep your items compliant, then yeah, there are savings to be made by going for a solution that is actually built to manage your Macs from the ground up.
Yeah, I would add, another consideration is the value of interacting with our support team. So we have worldwide support 24 hours a day during the business week, where you can reach someone at Kandji who is a Mac admin. So we've been very successful in hiring people out of industry that have experience being a Mac admin, using other tools before they came to Kandji. And we're very, very proud of what we've been able to do with our support team. Our global head of support, James Dancer, I'll name him, is in our London office. And this is where that CSAT rating comes from, is because when customers call into Kandji and ask for help on a problem, they're talking to someone who understands the Mac platform deeply, and they're able to consult on options and provide guidance on ways that, solutions that will help not only solve the problem, but get it done efficiently, save time, right? And help the admin understand what they're doing. So I know that that's been a really important part of our success, is that customers get that kind of partnership from us, where, we don't we want our customers to be successful deploying Apple devices. Kandji is a method for doing that, right? But there's knowledge and experience, whatever, that still accompanies the tools that helps the admin be more successful, and that's what our support team does. They educate and inform and assist in ways that I think can't be replicated elsewhere. We even in vendors that are focused on Apple, I hear all the time that, you know, we just have never had this kind of support experience from our other vendor. We've never had this kind of partnership with a vendor like we do with Kandji. And so, yes, you know, maybe you already have that E5 license from Microsoft and Intune looks free because you don't have to pay extra for it. But I'm telling you that the tool itself is going to save you money, and the ability to interact with our support team is going to help you out as well.
Yes, I 100% agree with everything you said on the support side. I keep telling people about my first interaction with Kandji. It was my first instance I ever saw. I ran into an issue. There is a nice button in the Kandji webpage to reach out to someone. I think it took about 30 seconds before I was in contact with one of the support engineers from Kandji. It is actually someone who has a deep understanding of the product as well as how Macs work. In my case, we weren't able to resolve the solution straight away on the chat, but the chat was converted into an email string. And I think about 4 or 5 hours later, I had an email in my inbox waiting with a complete script with all the instructions on how I needed to sort the issue that I was seeing. It was something I've never seen anywhere else.
Yeah, amazing. So just to probe a little further, did you get handed off to a different support engineer? Did you have to wait for it to be escalated to a different team?
No, so when we had the chat, at one point, we reached a point where both me and the support engineer identified that, okay, we can't solve it here. We continue an email, but even when the emails came in, the original engineer I spoke with on the chat was always copied in. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the kind of experience you're going to have elsewhere, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so it's a nice seamless kind of support, which is what a lot of people are looking for. And I have to say it's one of the reasons why Trams is so successful, because we look after multiple sort of relationships with vendors and act as that one support point of contact. But thank you, Weldon, and thank you, Martin, for this afternoon. I know we've had a number of questions, which I think Ryan has been quick in answering. Has been doing a stand-up job with that. Absolutely brilliant. I don't know if there's any final questions from anyone just before we finish off, or if there is anything you two wish to finally say.
No, I just would like to echo how we're closing here, that we at Kandji are all really excited to partner with Trams because of that commitment to serving the customer and providing them with the best solution. We're really pleased about the level of Apple expertise within Trams. It makes it a really natural relationship for us, and one that I think will be really productive. And we're excited about what we can do for customers together. Thank you for having me today.
Guys, thank you for coming on board. We have a lot of positives about Kandji. I know that we talked about it internally, and I think we've already got our first customer that's signed up onto Kandji following some demos. So obviously we look forward to working with you a lot more. If anyone has any questions following this, I will be emailing the video and further details to you. So feel free to reach out to us at that point. But until such time, thank you very much. Thank you both, and look forward to catching up with you all soon.
Cool. Thank you very much, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.